Um, the 1970s, we had an amazing movement in America called the Jesus Movement. So it was a bunch of hippies that Christ just decided to pour His Spirit out on. And there's this radical movement out of San Francisco. So out of America and Haight-Ashbury and Azusa and all these things have happened. But the Jesus Movement was covering the whole of America with teenagers. So they were getting high and meeting Jesus.
Amen.
And they didn't look like the church. They didn't act like the church. And so the fathers, the pastors in the churches said, this isn't God. And they shut down the movement. And they basically denied that Jesus could work that way. And so every other revival that we've ever known of, we can trace it back to where it started. And every one of them have been started by some kind of prayer and fasting movement. Ladies praying in a barn and fasting for 2 years, but praying every single day, all day, and then all of a sudden revival pours out in England. Evans, Roberts, all these different revivals, we could trace. The only one that we couldn't figure out how it started was the Jesus movement. And so no one for years and years and years, and actually Francis Frangipane in Cedar Rapids is the guy who literally, Lord showed him that it was millions of mothers crying out for their kids that were hooked on LSD and everything else, and that birthed this move of God amongst these drug kids. And it was amazing what happened. A lot of my friends came out of the Jesus movement. A lot of older boomer pastors right now that are out there, that's how they met Jesus, was through that movement. And now again what's happening is the opioid crisis and what's happening in America right now with meds, just prescription medications. We've way over medicated your generation. We've way over coddled your generation. We've stopped pain as best we can, and God is always going to use pain to transform us. And so now your pain is internal. Now your pain is depression and suicide and anxiety. And so then when you get those things, or you're diagnosed and we put you on medication, and we start to over-med all of those things. Now, if you're on medication, stay on medication, and that's not a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. I'm saying that we've run to that instead of the power of God in our lives. And we've said to you, go to church with us, be a Christian, and we've got divorced, and dads have left, and you look at that and kind of go, why would I want to do that? So your generation, and when I say your, I'm talking about 22 to 24 and younger, is the Z generation, potentially the last generation. Do I believe that God wants to move on a generation and cover the whole earth in His glory? Absolutely, or I wouldn't be giving my life to this. Do I believe that that could be your generation? Absolutely, or I wouldn't be standing here. I could be anywhere in the world, making a lot of money, doing a lot of other things, and I give my life to this because I really believe that your generation could capture this kingdom kind of thing where kingdom and business aren't separate, and God could actually pour out His Spirit again like He's done so many times, but we can actually sustain it because the older generation is saying yes with you. That is why we call G42 G42. It's the 42nd generation. It's the generation that decides to step into the promised land and not stay in the wilderness. There was 41 stops. You know, when the Israelites left Egypt out of 400 years of slavery and went into the wilderness, you guys know that story? Right? They're wandering around with Moses for all those years. You know, they were never more than 10 miles away from the promised land. Ever. You know that their shoes never wore out. They were provided food every single day. Their clothes never wore out. They had like the perfect church services. So they have the perfect kind of church. Like we would call that kind of church perfect. They saw miracles all the time. They had every single one of their needs met all the time. There was no poverty. All these things that you guys want to reverse, these oppressions that you would love to go tackle in the world, were all taken care of. And yet none of them but two wanted to step over into the promised land and give their lives to something. Jesus we get for free. Christ will cost you everything. So we get Jesus just by saying yes. But then if we really want to go radically change things like I've heard from your mouth, it's going to cost you your life.